This is one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Those are some of the most iconic words of the 20th century. Whether or not you were born when they were first uttered, you know exactly what they are referring to. The day that we found out that the moon definitely isn't made of cheese. This week marked the 50th anniversary of what is perhaps the most iconic moment in the 20th century. Two American astronauts, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, becoming the first men to walk on the surface of the moon. Or, this week marks the 50th anniversary of the greatest hoax of the 20th century, the US government successfully pulling the wool over everyone's eyes and making the whole world believe they had sent men to the moon when they hadn't. So which one is it? I'm sure you've had this discussion with someone this week, and hopefully it didn't turn into a row. But one thing that we know for sure is that there is definitely representation on both sides of this argument. In fact, according to a recent YouGov poll, 1 in 6 British people believe the moon landing was staged. Now that's a big percentage. Now the issue at the heart of this debate isn't really science. It isn't really about physics or astronomy. It isn't really about history. This really boils down to trust. Some people, without any tangible physical proof they can examine themselves, are choosing to trust governments and authorities, the state, the administration, when they say this thing really happened. And some people, without any tangible physical proof that they can examine themselves, are choosing not to accept something as true and factual simply because the establishment says this thing really happened. It's all about trust. Can you, should you, do you believe sources of authority when they tell you something is true? This kind of debate always makes me think about God and humanity. You see, the Bible clearly sets out God as the original, universal, and ultimate authority in the entire created universe. He alone has the power to create and to give life. He alone created humanity. But very early in his relationship with a flourishing earth, in a place called Eden, the enemy of our souls sowed a seed of distrust within humanity. Human beings began to question whether they should believe their ultimate source of authority when he told them something was true. They chose to reject what God, the ultimate authority, said was true. And they chose to accept a theory that ultimately proved to be false, that disobeying God was the real key to living forever. Now, whether man landed on the moon or not doesn't really have any real-world implications for our day-to-day lives. But our ancestors' choice to embrace a false conspiracy theory had very real consequences. Consequences for us, and also consequences for God. As a result, God has made it his personal mission to prove to us that he's entirely trustworthy and that we can safely trust in his authority. The Bible lays out his case for why we can safely trust him. That's why Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived, proclaimed, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." That's why Jesus, the Son of God, proclaimed, "I am the truth and the way and the life." And that's why we read that when sin has been destroyed once and for all, we will be in a great multitude that declares to God, "Just and true are your ways." God understands that it is difficult for us to sometimes believe earthly governments and administrations because we've been stung in the past. But he wants us to know that we can always trust him, our ultimate authority. And so here are our 3 takeaways. Number 1, if you ever feel like you can't trust any leader or government, be assured that you can trust God. He always keeps his promises. Number 2, we often feel like trust has to be earned. And so try trusting God with the small things, and he will prove that you can also trust him with the big things. And number 3, as you look up this evening and you see the moon in the sky, know that the one who placed it there is still standing by, and he's got the whole world in his hands. You can trust him to help you live a life less ordinary.